answer any questions that you all type in. Steve, take it away.
All right. So you got the recording going?
Yep, the recording is going now.
Okay, great. So welcome everyone, and welcome to this installation of the Tableau Vault, where today we're going to talk a little bit about augmented analytics and what that means from a Tableau perspective. In order of introduction, my name is Steve Sialowitz, as Nick mentioned. I am back at Tableau after taking a bit of a hiatus, but I've been in the data and analytics and machine learning space for well over 15 years at this point, working with both traditional BI and ETL products, as well as working with more modern self-service visual analytics and data prep products that you know from Tableau and other places. As you can see, as part of this presentation today, we're just going to start with some brief introductions, a little bit of background before we actually get into the actual features and functionality and showing you some live technology. And once again, as Nick mentioned, please ask questions, through the chat and the Q&A. I will not be looking at the screen as I'm presenting, but certainly we did save time at the end to go over Q&A. And if Nick has the ability, he'll certainly answer some of these questions as we're going. So for those of you that have been around Tableau for a while, I'm sure you're well aware that we help people see and understand data, right? This has been our mantra since day one of the organization. And as you take note of the emphasis on the people aspect of this. And when we talk about people, we talk about all kinds of people. We talk about business and IT people. We're talking with really advanced users and novice users of analytical capabilities. And you'll see with today, we extend that even further, right? For anybody that's used Tableau before, you have to have at least a basic understanding of data and orientation of data. You'll see that we've actually extended this to the person that doesn't even have that level of knowledge now, the person that knows how to ask a basic question, typically a Google style question, and you'll see how we allow them now to participate in the conversation with your data. So let's move forward with that. So when we talk about the augmentation, once again, how the title of the session, we are generally talking with respect to advanced analytical capabilities, artificial intelligence, machine learning, things like that. And that certainly contrasts with the concept of automation, which is what probably most people are aware of. You hear about how people go through big exercises of modeling data, and then they put it into, that comes up with some sort of predicted element, and then they operationalize it so they can come up with thousands or millions of answers to questions in a day, right? So answering questions like, should we send an offer to open a bank account, right? You're not going to do that one at a time because there's way too many people to consider, right? So that's where you tend to have an automation, and you take people out of the loop in that kind of question, and that's why you automate it. Or what about, do I increase their credit card limit? People are hitting that button on the website saying, please increase my limit, right? And there's usually a system that figures out whether that person should get an increased limit or not, right? Once again, automation, taking people out of the loop, taking, the operational people out of the loop. Well, we're focused today on the concept of augmentation, and this is keeping people in the loop, right? Because when we talk about some of the things with Tableau, and we talk about augmenting it, we are focused a little bit more on the more, high stakes type of questions, right? Things like, should we acquire this company? Well, you're never really going to build an automation around that because it's not a question you answer on a daily basis. And it's certainly one that's going to need lots of discussion with other people, right? So you want to have data informing the people that are going to ultimately make those decisions, not having someone a system make a decision on your behalf, right? So we want to make sure that, once again, that level of understanding is provided through Tableau to help you have a more data-driven, informed decision. Now, when we talk about augmentation, Tableau actually offers several capabilities of that today and more coming in the future. We're certainly going to focus on the two on the left here, the explain data and the ask data, okay? But just to point out things like recommendations, that's a level of augmentation, right? In Tableau portal, right, you have the ability, just by using the product, it comes back and it tells you, oh, did you know that there's other people in similar roles to you that are using this visualization and you're not? Right? Maybe that's something that you should consider. Maybe it'll help you with your job. So we give you recommendations. We also have concept of advanced analytics from some of the more advanced calculation capabilities that are built right into Tableau today, as well as capabilities of integrating with R and Python and Einstein analytics discovery from Salesforce, our parent. So you have those kinds of capabilities all within the environment that are, once again, they're helping you ultimately build a better chart that helps you inform you so you can make a decision on your data, right? Why are we doing this? Well, because while automation is really, good for a lot of things, we do think that, instead of me passing the torch to someone else to come up with the answer, at Tableau, we certainly believe that people who know the data should be the ones asking the question, right? It certainly will reduce the turnaround time. I'm going to have the best understanding, so I don't have to explain it to so many different people, and they come back, and that's what I said, but not exactly what I meant. So once again, really making a quicker turnaround to come up with good solutions and good answers and move your business along. Now that you have a little bit of background on that, let's actually hop into some of the product capabilities that we're talking about today. So for starters today, we're going to talk about explain data, right? So explain data we refer to of moving from what to why. Right? Tableau has always been excellent at telling you what's going on, the incredible visualizations within the product, the self-service capabilities. You understand your data when you use Tableau. But occasionally you'll see a data point that is some anomaly, an outlier or something, and you're going, wow, that doesn't really seem to fit in with the rest of my data, and I really want to know why is that, right? And that's where explain data comes in. So why don't we actually, go out of the PowerPoint and take a look at some of those capabilities in here. So I'm starting off right now where I have a dashboard, a map of London and the boroughs of London, I could see it's talking about the average duration of home ownership, right? And certainly, as you look at this, for me, one item sticks out, and I could see the borough of Newham, and it's telling me that I've got lower duration of home ownership in this borough. And I'd like to understand a little more about why is that the case. Well, quite simply, without having to learn, in-depth new features and machine learning type capabilities, we're doing it the Tableau way. And the Tableau way is you click on it, and we can see there's a new icon available to you that basically says it's explain data. So the light bulb to give you an idea. And just by doing that, that's all I need to do. Tableau will give me guidance on understanding why is that off, right? And as I take a look at this, well, Tableau in the background ran a series of models and calculations and figured a whole bunch of things out. It came up with a scoring and figured out which potential explanation is best to worst. And it ranked them, and it gives it to me on the left. So here's all of my different explanations. And as I look at each one, I could see what it's describing. And I could see what it's describing with natural language generation. You could see these are just regular English sentences that are all around. So we generate information to make it very easy to read, and once again, it's very easy to understand. So what do I have here? Well, for the borough of Newham, I could see that I am analyzing the average duration. Okay, once again, that's what we asked for. That's what I clicked on. And right now it's starting to talk about the residential group. And basically it says that in Newham, a higher proportion of the house sales are in neighborhoods with young ethnic communities. It shows me right here. If I scroll just a little bit, you can see that highlighted in color that Newham certainly is an outlier compared to all the other categories compared to Newham, right? So I could see very easily that, okay, this is showing me a significant difference, and one of them is based on the ethnic communities. Okay, interesting. If I scroll down further, I could learn more about that. And I could see also that these communities tend to sell their houses more frequently. All right, good to know. So this is one of several explanations. Now, Tableau thinks that this is probably the most valid one, but it's still up to me to decide. Once again, it's giving me information, but I'm still in control. I'm still the one with the power, right? So if I want to, let's just look through a few of these and just get a little bit of an idea of what else I have here. So now with housing affordability, it's telling me that there's a much higher proportion of house sales in Newham occur in neighborhoods with extremely low affordability, right? Right. So that's also very interesting. And let's look at one more. I could see right here that it's also telling me that almost all the house sales in Newham occur in neighborhoods where less than 10% of the population is retired, right? Very interesting. I go down a little bit further. I could also see that the duration of homeownership clearly increases with the proportion of the retired population, right? So this is all, once again, very informative. It's giving me guidance on why this data may be an anomaly, right? And once again, as I pointed out, you have very English, sentences, the natural language generation, so it's very easy to read and understand. But of course, as I look at the charts here, I'm going, well, that looks very Tableau-ish, right? And as it should, because we use Tableau to build Tableau. As a matter of fact, there's even an extra little link right over here where it actually takes it, and if you notice, it's going to add it into the environment, right? And I'm going to actually add this one too. Right? Second. All right. And I'm going to close this off. And as I take a look at the information here, well, I could see, once again, here is, the average duration. Here is, I apologize. I forgot to turn off my alerts. Right. So I could see, once again, the information. Let's actually make this a little bit easier to see. It's a regular Tableau chart. There's nothing unique about this. There's nothing hidden or anything. I can go through, and if I decide, hey, I don't want certain pieces of information, I certainly could change it. I could change the numbers around. I could change, the coloring, the opacity in this case, whatever. Right, so I can do whatever I want because it's just a regular Tableau chart, but it's now giving me a lot more content, and it helped me build out the explanation as I see fit, right? Use the ones you want, don't use the ones you don't want, but it's giving you that guidance and helping you move your business that much further along, that much more quickly, so you can actually, once again, make better decisions with data. All right, so let's move on and just point out, once again, what you've just seen, once again, helping you recognize that you have relevant data because it's using the data that that you're working on, right? Truthful, it's all data oriented, right? And hopefully you recognize that, hopefully you agree that it's engaging, right? It's very interactive. It's very much the Tableau way. So you have a pretty easy way of learning and seeing and understanding your data with a little more depth than you did before. All right. Now, let's move on to our next section, right? Actually, we did the demo. Let's talk about ask data, right? Because while explain data helps a user that already knows something about Tableau get deeper without having to learn more skills, ask data is about allowing a whole new group of users access to Tableau and ask questions of it without having to learn although we believe to be the simplest tool in the world, but you still have to learn some basic drag and drop techniques with Tableau, right? Now, if I've ever Googled before, I can probably do ask data, right? It's built on some other, once again, advanced analytic capabilities, some natural language query. We use some semantic intelligence, which is a really fancy way of talking about a published data source. Natural language processing, once again, how we actually take that query and make it work. And of course, it's all fully integrated with our Tableau environment. Now, this concept of asking an English-like question of your data, right, is something that lots of companies have tried. Very few companies have been successful with in the past. But if I take a look at the information here, just to give you an example of why it's so hard, just take note of the concept of, I like the one at the bottom, 6-foot doctors work at the hospital. What does that mean, right? Could it be 6 podiatrists work at the hospital? That's certainly a possibility. Could it be we only hire really tall doctors? There are only doctors that are 6 feet tall that work at this hospital. Or how about this one? How about there's only 6 doctors that are very short at this hospital, all right? 6-foot tall doctors, okay? Once again, using commas would help make that clear, but we don't always talk with commas, right? So the idea here is the English language, or most languages, can be very confusing, right? So how do we take something that is not a very accurate way of describing things and turn that into something that a computer can understand, right? And without getting too much into the technology, you can see that Tableau has a collection of techniques that it uses in the environment, from understanding things like vagaries, like recent. Okay, well, recent certainly means time, okay, but how much time, right? We have a way of interpreting that, right? When I see things like from chairs, right? Well, I know in the system, because I have fully indexed out my data, that chairs are part of my subcategory product group, right? And then I see Germany. Well, Germany doesn't exist, but DE, which is the code for Germany, does exist, and that's a country, right? So you could see how, once again, there's a lot of interpretation that has to happen based on understanding the data and understanding how people ask questions to be able to come up with good answers to your question. So now that you've seen a little bit about how we do things behind the scenes, let's actually show a little bit more about the product. All right. So now I'm working in my Tableau server, right? And I'm just going to bring up a dashboard, right? Nothing crazy, something built on Superstore, nothing amazing about this. And as I take a look at this, well, it's fine. It is telling me, okay, there's the sales for New York. I didn't mean to do that. This is the sales again, and this is more sales, right? And while that's fine, I'm actually interested in learning about profit, right? Not just sales. How do I go about getting this done? How do I go about figuring out profit analytics right now? Well, there's a couple of things I can do, right? Today, without having to do anything with the Ask Data functionality that we're going into, I certainly can go into the web edit mode if I have the rights, of course. And of course, do I understand the basic principles of the drag and drop of the Tableau interface? The web edit functionality here is almost exactly the same as the desktop functionality. We're not going to go into that today because I'm going to work from the assumption that's not my skill set, or maybe I don't have the rights. What else can I do? Well, I could certainly just put a comment in here and ask the author to say, can you adjust your dashboard and add profit in? And that's certainly valid, but that could take hours, days, weeks, who knows how long this can take until some other person responds to my request. This might not be their day job, right? Where they need to build out a dashboard for me. So instead of going through all these other potential mechanisms, we also have this concept of Ask Data. And Ask Data, just as I've been describing, allows me to have a conversation directly with my data, right? So the concept here is it brings me up to an interface, and I'll explain the rest of it in a few moments, but basically we have the question bar, right? Where I can just go in and I could say things like, well, what is the profit, right? And I can certainly do that, and it gives me an explanation. Oh, you want sum of profit, right? And that's right. So if I just do that, it comes back and goes, there's your answer, right? Now I will undo this and just say, you don't have to do the full what is, just like you don't do that in Google either. I can just say profit, and it does the same thing. So I can be a little more shorthanded if I wanted to. You don't need to do full English sentences, right? So I have that. Now, I'm going to use this. I'm going to build out, a little bit at a time right now, just for showing it to you. I want to actually not for profit for the entire company. I'm actually talking to you here from New Jersey, and so I'm going to say, tell me about the profit in New Jersey, right? And if you spell New Jersey, right, there we go. There we go. State is New Jersey. It recognized New Jersey as a state, and by doing that, it'll automatically bring that back. Now, I've got a number. Of course, I want to see this a little more Tableau-like. I'd like to see this graphically. So maybe I'm going to see, let me see this over time. Right? And it automatically figures out, oh, you probably want a line chart, and it makes a best guess that you want this by month, right? As it shows it right there, which I can adjust in a few moments, all right? So you can see how easy it is to start working with this. And you know what, let's go one step further. Besides the profit, I'm actually interested in the profit ratio. So I'm gonna say profit divided by sales, right? So, and it comes back as, oh, you want sum of profit divided by sum of sales. It's like, yeah, that's what I want. So, and I can see now it shows me two lines, one that shows me the profit, one that shows me the profit ratio. I can see that this one dips down significantly. It makes it very obvious that I've got something negative, which if I look really carefully, the profit over here was slightly negative. So it accentuates it a lot. So once again, I've got a lot of information just by being able to ask some basic questions, right? So, of course, I actually go over here. I'm going to build a new sheet just for a second and say I could have just done this all, in one question: sales in New Jersey, sales in New Jersey over time, right? And so in one step, it figures the whole thing out, right? So you have a lot of flexibility, whether I do it all at once, whether I do it one step at a time, do whatever works for you, all right? So let's actually go back over here for a moment to this one. And now let's actually go through and just show you the rest of this environment, and then we'll answer a few more questions. So what else do I have around here? So first of all, there's the left side of the screen, right? This left side of the screen is showing me the information about the data that I have available to me to work on. So as I take a look at it, I can see things like, if I take a look at state, it tells me that it's actually got the full state name. I'm not using state code, so it helps me understand how I need to enter my information, right? I could see that there are 786 unique names in the system, and I can see a quick sample of them, right? I can see my order dates are the 4 years from 2014 and 2017 inclusive. So I could see that's the range of data I have. So pretty easy to start getting an understanding of my data. If I take a look at my profit, I could see, oh, my minimum profit is negative 6,000, highest profit is 8,000, average is $31. So pretty significant, around the just profitable level, or the barely profitable level. So once again, I have a better understanding of my data and the kinds of questions I can ask based on seeing the information on the left side of the screen, right? What else do I have? Along the top of the screen, I have things like undo and redo. I can save this. And if I save this, it saves it as a standard Tableau specification. People that know Tableau, a TWIB file, right? And it saves it in my Tableau server, right? So which means I can click on it later, as I will. I'll show you in a few moments, and use with just like any other dashboard in the environment. I can swap my rows and columns. So if I could turn this vertically, I'm not going to do that for this case. So let's move that back. I can embed this. So this isn't embedding my visualization, but it's embedding Ask data in somewhere else. So now I can actually take this piece of HTML, drop it into my own application, and now my application can have some really great interactivity with understanding the data, right? And then I can also share. Right? So this is actually going to share this visualization to somewhere else. So if I copy this link out, and just for the kicks, I'll just paste it into another tab over here, and it'll bring me the same information I had just a moment ago. All right? So for this visualization. All right, so now I'll go back over here. All right, so that's the framework, and that's always there. Now, since we've already started asking some questions, you can see that it's been building it out along the top over here. And you can also see that these items have its own set of capabilities. So if I wanted to, I could go over here and say, well, do I want to see the sum of profit? Maybe I actually want to see the average profit, right? And I'll apply that, and I can see how the information gets adjusted a bit, right? And now it's showing average profit. I can come over, to my order date. Right now I'm looking at order date by month, but I could change it to a different level. I could say, hey, you know what? I'm not interested in this by order date. Let's do it by ship date. So I could switch that around too, right? I also see right here that I'm filtered on New Jersey within state. I could pick other states if I wanted to right here. If I wanted to, I could also click on state and say, you know what? I don't want to do it based on state at all. I want to do it based on something else. And then, of course, I decided, hey, I don't even want to filter on state at all. Let's just remove that completely. And now I have my numbers all changed. Right? So there's a lot of different things you can go and adjust within the environment. So you can have a lot of flexibility. Of course, the rest of the time, while I can make these changes from doing things up here, I'm going to change them by just typing in into the environment. So let's move on to our next visualization. Now, as I bring up a new visualization, or if I pointed it out the first time I went through, there was actually a set of suggested questions. These suggested questions are based on the data that's here. As you can see, it has sales, it has state, it has superstore count, right? So I could see things that it's based on this data. So it actually will generate a new set of questions for every data set. And as an administrator of it, as an owner of it, I can actually edit these. I can actually build my own questions into here if I see people asking the same questions all the time. So I can adjust that, right? But for the purpose of today, let's point out that you have a lot of great suggestions in here that also give you a little guidance on some of the things you could do in the environment. So I could do things like sorting, right? I could set things like minimums, at least this, by, so a filter of sorts, right? I could look at dates. I could see the latest order date, year-over-year calculations, all sorts of things. So this isn't just a set of pre-made questions. It's also a bit of education on things you can do with the data, right? Your visual types and so on, right? So now, for the purpose of this, though, I'm not going to use these. I'm going to actually do my work from scratch. And what I want to do right now is, I want to ask about, just tell me about the revenue I have in the system. And it comes back and says sum of sales is the suggestion. And when I do revenue, it comes back with sales, right? And why is that? There is no revenue in my system, as you can see here. But it was smart enough to recognize that revenue and sales in this context are the same thing, right? And why is that? Because the owner of this data set, in this case, me, okay, I actually put in, and you're gonna have to see where I'm circling right over here, okay? You can see where it says synonyms revenue. I put that in. Why? Because I've looked at the way people are using it. People are actually typing the word revenue. It was giving them errors. So I said, you know what? I have the ability to adjust the environment. And as an administrator or an owner of this data set, I could say, here's revenue. You know what? Some people want to say, hey, show me the money, right? So let's just actually create another one called money, right? So if I actually, clear this off and said, now show me the money, it's still going to come back with some sales, right? So as a person that owns this data set, I have the ability of augmenting this and making it easier for users as I see the habits of the users, right? Or I can anticipate them and just put them in advance, right? So now that I've done that, let's actually take a look at let's go back here and say, now let's I like sticking with revenue. Revenue by team, right? Because we organize our regions. We have 4 different regions. We call them teams. But as you can see here, once again, just like before region, I put a synonym and I called it team, all right? So I can certainly do that very easily. Let's actually go one more time. I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to say, this time I'm going to say revenue for team 4, right? Notice filter region to west, okay? And it only shows me region 4 or team 4, which is the west. And once again, why is it doing that? So not just on the names of the data that's available, but actually the values of the data itself too. I have the ability of not just naming this team for sales region, but in the values, I can also put synonyms on that too. So for whatever reason, maybe one year the East Coast was the #1 team, and they were always called Team One going forward, and whatever. So whatever the logic was, people call them by these team names. You can name the system in here. They also call the West team the California team, the Cali team, right? So I put that in there also. So once again, making it really easy for users to get results and not errors just by augmenting the environment a little bit this way. All right. So now I've got my revenue by team for just team 4. Let me actually clear this off. You know what? Instead of clicking on the clear, let's actually, clear, which is starting over, right? And I have that right there. And now let's actually say, you know what? I'm interested in seeing the year-over-year revenue. And so first of all, it understands YOY. I could have typed year over year, but YOY it understood. So there's a lot of even more advanced capabilities that are built right in to recognize, once again, how to interpret your information and make it useful. Now, I'm actually, I think looking at this year over year is way too high a level. I only have 3 data points over the 4 years. So I really want to see this at a much lower level. So let me actually change this to day over day, right? And you can see how it crosses this information out and it adds in this information. It's like, oh, is that what you want? Sure is. And now I could see, what my, my revenue's been every day for the year, or change in revenue every day for the year. Now, this data point is very interesting. Why is it such an anomaly? I'm not sure, but you know what? That's something we'll deal with a little bit later. But I could see, once again, the idea that, I've got a lot of good information with very little work put into it, right? So now that I've done that, actually go over and build out another sheet or two, right? So it's going to come over here, build a new sheet, and let's do, things like, let's see the revenue by state, right? And as I go to do that, as you can imagine, Tableau being as graphical as it is, says, hey, that sounds like a map to me. So it's showing me the information by state. I can hover over the information and see the information, so I can work with however I want. You know what? And maybe I just want to do that for team 1. And if I narrow my data down, I'm now just looking at my East region, which happens to be this collection of states, right? And then let's go build one more in here. And let's say, let's look at things like, I want to take a look at my revenue by subcategory. And as I go to do that, it says, well, you know what? We have something called category and we have something called subcategory. Just wanted to confirm that you got it right, right? And so in this case, I want subcategory. So I'll just click on that. And it gives me out all of my subcategory information, right? But you know what? I don't really want to see all these smaller items over here. So, how about I just filter this down, revenue, sales, whatever, greater than 28,000, right? And as I go to do that, it asks me, do you want sales of at least 28,000 or do you want the sum of sales being 28,000? Quick technical understanding here. Sales of 28,000 says, do you want each transaction to be greater than 28,000? Filter out the ones that are not, and then summarize them up by the different subcategories. Or do I want to summarize them up to the different subcategories, so sum of sales, and then each one of those being 28,000? So the sum of sales says that everything below supply, so art, envelopes, labels, and fasteners, will go away, which is what I want. So I want sum of sales. And there we go. I just filtered that data out pretty easily. And then, not really the way I want to see it. Let's say as a tree map. And by doing that, I changed my display. Of course, I could have been over here and just clicked on something, but I am trying to show you everything through typing, right? So you can see, once again, a pretty simple way of being able to organize my data, very English-oriented, very simple. It interprets a lot of your what you type and matches that together with the data that's available to come up with a great visualization for you. Now that I've come up with a couple of visualizations, let's finish this off, by saving this information. I'm going to save this. This is going to be our Vault presentation, our Vault Viz, right? I'll save it in my Explorer folder. I'm going to add the tabs so I can have that in a few moments, so I can switch between them pretty easily. And now, once again, because it's a standard Tableau visualization, I now have the ability of doing all the things that I would do in any other visualization available throughout Tableau. So as I take a look at this information, I might want to, get alerted anytime it goes, my average profit goes above 104 or 105, we'll say. So I can just go and say, let's set an alert, create an alert for this information. There we go. Anytime it's above 105. And you can see how it moves up to the top. It's currently not true. And I could say this will send me an alert anytime my data goes to that point, right? So once again, very easy to now use the rest of the Tableau functionality, even though I built it, with a different interface than you're currently used to, right? I could do all the other things I've done before, comments, I could download it, share it, and so on and so on and so on, right? So I have lots of different capabilities I could do with it. As a matter of fact, one of the other capabilities I want to do, I'm going to come back over here, and I did want to learn a little bit more about why this data point is so far off, right, compared to everything else, right? So, well, what do? Much like I showed you before with my my Tableau desktop. Oh, because I'm doing it on a different data set. Let's Oh, I need to go into edit mode. My mistake. You have to be in your edit mode. And now I can bring in my explain data once again. So why is this data point so different than I had before? Well, I'm not interested in the count. I'm interested in the sum of sales. Running the algorithms, ranking them, coming back, and ultimately comes back with, I could see right here, I have an extreme value, right? As I can see, there is a single record that makes the values so different, right? And I could see how that shows right here. I can see that there's one data point out of all of the data points that just stands out. I'm going to add that to my environment. I'm going to come over here, and it shows what it'll look like if I remove that data point, right? And we'll drop that in also, right? So as I take a look at this one, once again, so now I have this in the environment, once again, with its English-oriented definitions, so natural language generation sentences in here. And I come over here, I have my information without that data point, but if I wanted to, I could move this, change this around. Let's make this a single value drop down. I think I like that better. And let's look at all of the values, and it brings it back, right? Or I could just say just without the outlier. All right. So I realize I went off on a bit of a tangent there from our ask data. I went back into explain data, but the whole point of this is, with back to our ask data, is once again, you don't need to know the drag and drop nature of the Tableau interface. You just need to be able to ask your basic question. Tableau will interpret this and give you, a great response in a very quick order. One of the things that makes this also very unique is Tableau will do this on any published data source. So whether you made a cached hyper file or you're going live against your data source. In my case, this entire time, we've been going live against a Snowflake database. Right, so I do not need to build a cache file, which makes it unique compared to a lot of products that are out there. So use the mechanism that's most appropriate for the kinds of things you're trying to do. Right, Tableau gives you that level of flexibility. All right, now that I've done all of this, hopefully you think interesting work, I do want to show you just one hint of some administrative functions, just because I want to explain to you why did I know to type to make this revenue, okay? And why did I know to put in things like team 1 and team 2 and so on over here, right? The way I know to do that was not necessarily because people were calling up and complaining saying they couldn't figure out the data, right? It was because I was able to monitor it. If you own the data, or if you're an administrator, you have this usage analytics capability that comes through, and it tells me about the kinds of queries that people have been doing. Okay, so I can see I'm the only one using this system today. I could see that I've asked a lot of questions, but not all of them resulted in visualizations, because whether they were an admin function like doing the clear, or I typed in something that just wasn't valid, right? I could see that there's some disparity between there. Now, I can see down here, actually, this is the stuff that resulted in visualizations. Typed in sum of sales. I've done that one a lot, apparently, all right? But I can also go through and I could say, show me the questions, right? And as I take a look at the questions, this is what was actually being typed in, right? And if I come down to here, here's I typed in year over year, Y, all right? Obviously, I typed something wrong. It was just a natural typo. Or here, I typed in year over year, R even. I probably meant something else. Probably meant revenue, right? So if I see that a lot of people type in revenue without the UE on the end, I might want to add that as another synonym just to make people's lives easier. But the whole point being is I can see the things that were successful and the things that failed at answering people's questions, and I can work with that information to build and continue to improve the data set that we're working from. So with that, hopefully you've got a pretty good feel for some of the capabilities within within Tableau and the new explain data and ask data, which I probably shouldn't say new anymore. It's been around for a few years now.
Yeah.
But hopefully you got some value out of that. Now, Nick, I have not had a chance to look at whether there was questions or not. Or how are we doing?
We're doing great. Fantastic job, Steve. I think you really covered everything. And there was a couple questions about what version you need to have for Ask Data to work, and that's going to be 2019.1. And it's going to be available for your creators and your explorers, right? So you're going to want to work with your Tableau server admin if you're not that license type, and ask them to give you creator or explorer access, and you can use Ask Data on your Tableau server. And that's going to be 2019.1 and beyond. And then, Steve, the second question, can you switch back to your other tab and go into the Ask Data interface?
Okay.
And can you spend a minute or two and explain some of the capabilities that are available when you click on like some of the sales, or you change your dimension, your by dimension there by clicking on some of those. Yeah, there's a question around what's available and how can you change that via the UI.
Okay. So yeah, so changing via the UI. So quite simply, if I wanted to see instead of sum of sales, I wanted to see profit, right? Just by changing that, and once again, I can make that average profit, right? All in one step. So now it's average profit, and you can see that copiers are, our best profit as compared to everything else. So pretty easy to go and change it. Basically, it shows you all of your metadata. So if I want to see my information instead of, by subcategory, I want to now see it by shipping mode, whatever, right? Now I'm looking at it by ship mode. Right. So once again, so all of the different pieces of data that's available within the environment are available here, right? If I wanted to filter this down, not to 28,000, but maybe I wanted to be over 30,000 now, right? I could of course use my scroller, right, and adjust the information that way. Tree map, doesn't give you options here, but that gives you options right here. So if I want to make that a bar chart, I can do that right here, right? So once again, pretty much everything you do once you've created something, okay, through typing, you can adjust it through the drop downs, okay? But I can also, as I said, change them just by typing too, as I showed you before, right? All right.
One more question. Does Ask a Data have, does Ask Data learn, right, as people type in, and search, right? So does Ask Data get smarter as more and more people are using the environment? And my answer is yes. Steve, do you know anything about like some of the machine learning happens in the background?
Yeah, it does have certain rankings based on, when things are answered a lot, we change the order in which they show up in the list. All right. So it'll become more popular items will come to the top. So we'll do some things like that. We do want to add more of those things in the environment as we go forward. But we have a start at that with this point, unless you have anything else to add.
Yeah, well, something I also love about this interface is, Steve, can you highlight over top of, I don't know, let's do product ID on your left side. If you can highlight over that dimension, or you know what, or just do like category or something, right? Or even postal code, right? So what Ask Data does when users or when Ask Data is available in the Tableau server, right? It's available after 2019.1. Is Ask Data is profiling the tables, right? It's profiling this data source, and it's going to know that office supplies is a part of the product category group, right? So it gets smarter. Really, as soon as you upgrade to that version, you start using these data sets, and that's all being used, as Steve kicked it off with, with those smart natural language query algorithms, right? And as they just really only get smarter as you use it more often, and as you load more data into it.
Right. Actually, I realized one thing I point out. I just want to pop out over here because I started off by being inside of a dashboard. Okay, just point out that you could just go and say, okay, here is a data source. So once again, any published data source that you're allowed to work with. The person that owns the data source can lock this down and not allow Ask Data, right? But that's all it takes to get to it. I didn't have to start from a dashboard. I could just say, I know there's no dashboard that answers my question. I'm just going to go straight to Ask Data, right? So you can go right here and start typing your questions, right? For New York. There you go. Right. So there you go. That's all it takes to start doing that work. So you don't have to start from a dashboard, right?
And something that we often see is our customers don't know they have Ask Data, or they don't have access to it, or a lot of folks in the organization just really haven't turned it on. So if you're not seeing Ask Data, if you don't have the ability to access it, maybe it's just a matter of somebody giving you the appropriate access. And as Steve was showing, there's a save as capability. So a lot of times there's really no harm in a user getting access to a data source, start asking those questions themselves, right? And saving their work in just some ad hoc folder, or some basic or some sort of like just kind of junk folder, and that way they can go back to their work, return to it, and really it's lowering the barrier of entry, right? So everybody inside an organization can ask and answer questions of data. So if it's not enabled today, your server admin is going to be the person that can turn it on for you, or the Tableau team inside your organization.
Exactly.
I don't have any more questions, Steve. Maybe we'll give folks a couple minutes back here.
Absolutely.
Folks, this was recorded, so it's available.
All right. Well, so for everybody that joined, thank you very much for your time. If you have more questions about it, you certainly have your account exec team that supports you, and of course, there's plenty of information on the Tableau website. That you can get more information. So please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Once again, hopefully you found this useful. This will be posted to the Tableau Vault, right? So if you just go search for Tableau Vault, it'll bring you to that page, probably how you found this event to begin with. Thank you all very much for your time. Have a good day.